You know how that saying goes, if it wasn't for the last minute, I wouldn't get anything done. I try not to correct some of these things last minute, but it is what it is, right? That's how we end up getting here. Just straighten out some audio issues. So I hope everything is copacetic and it sounds good in your ears. Before we begin the stream, we're just going to set the ground rules, some housekeeping, and of course, it's chat. Hit the chat, subscribe to the channel, double tap the screen, hit the like, right? This all is to let the algorithm know this channel is real. This channel is not, part of the AI purge. We're trying to have conversations. So one of the best ways to have conversations is to converse, go back and forth. If you guys were here for yesterday's chat, you could see, we had some fun. We saw some jokes in the whole entire thing. We talked through some serious issues, but back and forth in the chat is what makes these streams really just kind of pleasurable, and kind of motivates creators to keep going. So of course, we're always going to be looking on the hunt for subscribers. Subscribe to the channel. If you're new here, enjoy the type of content, or even if you have a suggestion, you want to join the tribe, protect the brand. As we continue on our multi-year journey to grow this channel, and that's going to always be the name of the game. Growth, tiny improvements over time. So for those of you that participated in yesterday's chat or just participated in yesterday's stream, shout out to you guys. It's one of the better ones that we had, and that's because of the interaction. I like to think sometimes it's just the time of day, but we know there's billions of people on YouTube, and the algorithm is either going to push it because it sees people are here, people are showing up routinely. So I think that's a good deal. You show up, I create the content, you guys show up. So today, one of the things I wanted to go over, one of the things I want to talk about is mental health, but in the sense of the way we're seeing it today, right? We want to have hopefully more of a nuanced conversations, as we like to do, normally, regularly. That's always the name of the game here. So, and of course, I don't mind being sort of derailed if I see someone's talking about something in a chat. We can go back and forth. We can talk about that. I'm always down for that. That's always a game. So right now, shout out to you guys in the chat. Appreciate you guys for making it. The regulars, the ones that are constantly supporting. I love you guys that show up for me, and I thank you. Your attention, right? If people don't tell you this, your attention is valuable, right? And it matters where you spend it, where you choose to routinely spend it. For someone that values time, I think my time is highly valuable. For you to come and spend your time with me, that matters to me. So again, thank you guys. So just in terms of mental health, and a lot of these conversations, or these thoughts to do these conversations, they actually end up starting from real world conversations that I have. What's going on, guys? Again, thank you for joining, just hitting the chat. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel, right? we did really well yesterday. We had like 78 people watching, but we only got one subscriber. I'm gonna say just because it was so entertaining, right? It was so entertaining. But again, hop in, double tap the screen. So these conversations tend to start from real conversations, IRL, in real life, when you're talking to people. And one of the conversations I was having earlier today about a multitude of subjects, but one of them was about therapy and its usefulness. Now, I'm a proponent of therapy. My undergrad degree is forensic psychology. I love psychology. I love studying people. I love people watching, right? I'll do it most of the day. If you're around me and you got drama and you're talking about it, I'm air hustling. I don't know any players. I don't know anyone involved, but I'm like, oh, work. Right? If you're in the plane, texting your boyfriend, your girlfriend, 36-page thing, I'm going to be looking, say, can I see any of it? I'm not going to jump in business, but I'm just going to be, oh, what's Richardson? I just think the intricacies of people's lives are fascinating. The multitude of variables of how we're all so different, yet we go through the same thing. I love that. It's fascinating to me. So, but when we talk about therapy, and it's funny because this was the very first video I recorded. It was trash. Right? To talk about therapy, the first thing, I deleted it. It will never see the light of day. When I tried to edit it, the amount of cuts I had to do, I didn't have the ability to sit there and actually, get my thoughts out in a coherent manner. It was just like, and the fact is, it was too fact laden. I was trying to come at, the viewer with facts and this, and then this person said this and this. So, you try to memorize these things or look at them off camera, and it just doesn't come across as authentic. And I think people want authenticity. I think people crave that more so than polished products all the time. Essentially, the video was going to be about how originally Therapyy was geared towards women because it had its effectiveness in sort of sitting down there. We're talking outside of when we were shocking women's brains, right? When you use an electroshock therapy to cure, the fact that she wanted to get laid. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the talk therapy, the sitting down and emoting and talking about your issues and how that provides relief. How the ability to actually converse with someone. The same thing I do with my mom, same thing with my sister. I can talk about where they'll call me, and sometimes they just want to talk. And it's not as if, I'm the same way. I can listen, I can engage, I can remove myself from my own foolishness sometimes and give people that love you that type of time just to talk, just to meander, just to go. And usually at the end of the conversation, they feel better, they feel lighter. I do too. But when we're talking about broad strokes, when we talk about how men sort of view these things, it's different, right? It's different. We are usually geared towards more action. You've got a problem, I want to solve it. So much towards that we end up messing up things in our relationships with significant others where you just want to be heard. We want to solve the problem. Brenda at work that keeps, messing with you, we want to give you solutions for Brenda. We want to tell you how to, kick Brenda off the roof. We want to tell you, ignore her. Oh, go to HR, move departments. You just want to kind of just talk about Brenda. So when we go to therapy, where as a man, you're told again and again and again and again, you need therapy. That little thing was for such a long time, it was weaponized for men. It was weaponized against men to tell you, hey, you fucking up. You need to get on code. You can't blah, 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 go to therapy. So, there's a subset of men that, okay, I'll go to therapy. And that talk therapy isn't really effective. But more to the point, today we were talking about couples therapy and the ineffectiveness that I experience in couples therapy, because not all therapists are created equal and not all solutions that way. I went to, couples therapy, and I also went to therapy on the side. One of them was much more effective than the other. Sometimes what you see in therapy is, say we take couples therapy, the idea in which the therapist sort of grew up, the ideal of the time. Right now, we understand the ideal of this time is that men are wrong. Men don't know how to communicate. Men struggle with X, Y, and Z. They're usually the reason why relationships tend to go left, because men suck. That's the prevailing thought. You can't really escape something like this. It's pervasive. It's in everything. It's in, everything you consume, everything that you watch, everything that you read, everything that you hum along to. It's usually at the crux of it, something's wrong with the man. He failed to do something. He didn't do this, or he was doing something else that wasn't productive. He was doing too much of that. This is just a symptom of growing up in an era. You grew up in the era of Jordan, of LeBron, and you were a phenomenal basketball player. Didn't fucking matter, right? Didn't fucking matter. You would have been phenomenal in any era outside of those two. It just didn't matter. You had no choice in that. I said, hey, Marissa, glad you made it. You had no choice in that matter. That was it, right? So everything that you think about in terms of basketball of my generation is colored by our experience of watching Jordan. Now it's also colored by experience of watching some of the greats, just the era you grew up in. Same thing with therapists. You grew up in the era of this. Now I get it. We try to have the idea. We try to eliminate as many biases as possible, but we're being realistic. This is how people move. This is how people are. You cannot exist in a vacuum and take out every type of experience you've ever had. It colors you, colors the way you think, colors the way you move, colors the way you administer your therapy. So in my experience, we were very much focused on what I did wrong constantly, as if, and we see this today in dating, it's very hard sometimes to point out and say, hey, babe, I love you with all my heart, but that thing that you did was wrong. Now it's a fight for your life scenario. Now we have to sit here and go over and over again and try to get back on code, get back on track to say, no, we're talking about this. Not that It's what I said 3 years ago compared to what I said 5 days ago, and how those two stories don't. No, it's so easy to get sidetracked because I'm trying to chase you with this, trying to chase your emotion. Now I'm emotional, not like Carl Thomas emotional, but emotional. Now I'm screaming, I'm yelling because I don't have that sort of emotional capacity. And it's fine at admitting that men need work in these areas. Cool. But the way therapy is formed today, it's just not really effective for men. So when men are told to go to therapy, it's usually to reinforce how a woman already feels, what she already thinks. That's not really conducive or helpful for men today. So in the couples therapy, I felt like I was getting beat up on. Like I was getting it from both sides, and not in that, sexy way, but not like, damn, this kind of sucks. Damn, this kind of sucks. And I found that we had the weeks that we did have that were good were because I was walking on eggshells. I was trying not to be me so much, rather than, I think the healthier way to be now, as someone has done the work, and I don't mean the work as in I went to therapy, the work as in I did a lot of introspective therapy, thinking on my own. A good therapist is going to help you come to the conclusions that you need to on your own in a healthy way. It's going to help you develop the tools you need in crisis later on down the line. I'm trying to give you the building blocks you need to do better. That is more effective. We need tools. We need action. Cognitive behavioral therapy tends to have better results for men. You have to have whatever thoughts are tied to action. It's why men, when they get depressed, and I've suffered from depression, and father suffered from depression, runs in my family, it's always action. It's raw action that tends to save the day. I'm not feeling good, even when I'm coming down with a cold or sick or some sort of flu, fever, because I tend to overwork myself and not rest enough. Unfortunately, the solution has rarely been bed rest for me. Action. Right? I'm the guy that's going to the gym getting you sick. I apologize right now. I'm in the gym, coughing all over the bar. I gotta move. Sometimes, depending on what it is, maybe I just gotta go to treadmill, I just gotta walk, I gotta go elliptical, I gotta move. That makes me feel better. That makes me feel as if, okay, and it's not just a psychological thing. It ends up being me. Whereas I used to, say, had a common cold, I'd be down for a good 5, 6, 7 days. Right? You know how men get when they get sick, right? We're whining, we're crying. I get that action in. And I'm on the mend in 3 days. I'm up, I'm ready to go. That's just what it is. And I think that plays into the part for a lot of men. Now, this is obviously not to say that men don't need therapy, that men don't need help. They absolutely do. There's some that are truly suffering, and the unfair, cold, cruel part of it, that some of these things, maybe 40 to 50% of mental illness today is going to somehow be relieved on its own. That depression that you're feeling a lot of times, yeah, it's maybe more of a consequence of the society we're growing up in, we're living in, but those things tend to resolve on their own by you being in the society that pushes you. You got to go to work. You got to do this. You got to do this. You got to do this. Those things tend to resolve on their own. Real issues, real mental issues, but things that need medication, well, some of these things we don't have a solution for, we just can treat it. So, but in terms of relationships, in terms of just that aspect, it becomes kind of difficult to tell men just do that. But we're going to get back to that. We're going to jump around a little bit today. So again, feel free to jump in the chat. Let me know you're here. Double tap the screen, all that good stuff. Subscribe to the channel. Someone remind me to make sure I keep hitting that little graphic right there, because I will absolutely forget. So when we look at our athletes today, right, we're looking at a snapshot of talent, of their lives, of this incredible distance they've come from nothing to something now. We look at that, we're amazed. We almost wish we were them. Then what we end up doing is putting them on this higher pedestal. We end up thinking that somehow their lives are just intrinsically better than us. Yes, talent-wise, you got us beat. You got us beat. We cannot do these things. Can't run that far. We can't jump that fast. Can't jump that high. Can't run that fast. Can't do any of these things. One is a natural talent thing. We just weren't born with that. We just can't move like that, right? How do you consolidate? Men are built for fixing things when that causes mental health problems more so. I think talking things actually helps men. There's a subset. There's a group of times that, or skills you can build by learning how to talk about it. There is some relief. If you're the type of person that holds on to these things, you don't feel like as if you don't have friends, you don't have an outlet, there is some relief from that. But very shortly, very quickly, men need to feel as if, what are we going to do? Part of the talking for men is figuring out what we're going to do. You're not going to come to me and say just like, yo, this happened. Just what happens when we talk about that? Usually we end up saying, what am I going to do? Right? That's that key right there for men. She left me, blah, 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 the kids. What am I going to do? That's how springing on point. I know what you're going to do. Right? It's cool. You can let this out, but we're going to get up and we're going to figure this out. We're going to get all the information that we can, and we're going to devise a plan of action. That's usually what works for men. It's weird when you see men wallowing in that inaction. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I don't know what to do. Or they're simply just emoting. And we're not trying to shame men for that. But at some point in time, we always talk about you hitting that rock bottom and then you're moving. That's some of us love the get back, right? The building story, the saga when you started the story as a little farmer, but then you ended up being the chosen one. We like the journey story. We like that you went, hey, I got to go train. I got to find the magic sword. I got to find the magic armor. I got to build a party together so I can go save the kingdom from that. I'm essentially looking at my life is here. My problem is this journey. And at the end of it, I'm going to build myself up to do these things. Right? Y'all wearing bonnets and all. Well, I don't know where you got that from. But listen, what we're talking about here is just in terms of getting better, of growing, of trying to do better. We need to have that story. We need to have that action part of it, that turn. Otherwise, when we just sit there, you end up at the bar, wallowing in pity, drowning yourself in pity, just asking, just a feeling. Most of us need to get active. That's why we end up in the gym. We have that force. We have that fight going against, Blair, what's going on? We have that fight. We like to push up against a force. We're fighting this thing in a measurable way. I'm struggling. I'm upset. I'm trying to bench 225. I still remember the first time I did it. I remember when you go to that gym, for us, the action of it, a lot of other problems kind of just, they get muted a little bit. They're still there, right? They're still there. She broke your heart. It's still there, but now you get to expend a lot of that energy out in a way that's physical, that feels good for us. That's why you're depressed. What are the first things that a good therapist for men is going to tell you? Move. Go run some errands. Don't sit on your couch. Don't get up in the morning, go from your bed to your couch. Or don't get up in the morning and be on your couch and stay on your couch. When I got depressed, when my father passed, I would lose hours on the couch. I would just lose hours. I'm sitting there and the TV's watching me and I'm thinking I'm watching the TV. The sun's out and I blink, boom, it's 8 p.m. And where did 12 hours go? I'm sure I did stuff. I'm sure I went to the bathroom, I ate, I did something, but so much of that intervening time was just gone, just disappeared. You got to move, right? That's why some of us, when we get in those moods, what do? It's like, I got to go to work. It's a forcing me to move. Even if my work product sucked and my work product started to suck, I had very stark conversations with my supervisor. He's like, I was trying to put you in lane for a couple of things, but you sucked. I was like, yeah, I'm here for the get back. Here's the plan. Right? We sat there, we made the plan. I want to say 6-7 months time. He was like, yeah. Yeah. And I was proud of it. That movement helps. So one of the first things that I'm not saying you don't take your time to grieve. Absolutely, you need to, but you got to get that movement. But like we were saying, athletes, what are the problems when we're looking at, especially like as men? You get so much praise for your talents. We look at you and we say, these things that you're doing is incredible. I've never seen it before. I've never been able to do it. So I love it. Wow, it's incredible. It's amazing. Boom. So you start this, and this starts very early. You know a kid is unusually coordinated very early on. Then you pour into that. You put them in the special camps, right? You try to nurture this thing. Unfortunately, what we do a lot of in our community, especially the Black and poorer communities, what ends up happening, you nurture that talent to the exclusion of other things. There's no reason why you can't be also intelligent and naturally gifted and athletic. These two, they're not mutually exclusive. But sometimes we just do one over the other. So this kid is praised going through life. You coddle them in a way because you don't give them chances sometimes to grow on the other way, on the outside in very, very critical, important ways. This is just who they're going to be, how they are. It's detrimental, problematic. Okay. So over time, as they now get older, more and more praise for that is heaped on. They keep that going. Jazz, what's going on? They keep that going on. They keep it going. They keep it going. Now you're from high school. Now you're getting on, you're getting noticed. You're getting scouted. People are saying, wow, that's talent. So when I try to keep you in good graces, when I try to praise you for these things, the exclusion of others, okay, you become underdeveloped. A lot of times, emotionally sort of underdeveloped and stunted. But it's hard to notice a lot of that in high school because we're all like that, right? We're all like that. We're all, got our nose up, some woman's skirt. We're trying to figure it out. All of us look the same. All of us look goofy. All of us we're making stupid decisions left and right. I can tell you stories for days on those things. When you get to the college scene, even then you're like, okay, that's just how those guys are. That's how people on the teams are. That's how, those players are. The world notices when you get to the world stage, when you're drafted. Now we notice a lot of things that you've been doing. Now we get really curious and say, yo, how'd you ever make it from there to here? Now, instead of you just being you, now you have the resources to be kind of like in there. And, the news cycle's littered with stories of athletes drunk in Vegas. Okay? Damn, they're doing 200 miles per hour, waking up drunk in the car. You see them act like children with money. And one of the things in my guys in our circle, what we always talk about when we see stuff like this, especially a lot of my friends who have sons that are in that age or in college or have the talent to go far, sometimes we remember ourselves that, yeah, these are young men who sometimes didn't get a chance to be properly molded as men. They were praised for their talents. So when you see a lot of these athletes and we look at them, they've got the body and the physicality of a man, but the behavior of, a 16, 17-year-old, where it seems like you have this inability to know right from wrong and things happen. But more importantly, you're still being led by your dick, and I get it. It's a masculine space. There's ultra testosterone. We're praising that. You're working out. We're doing everything we can to build that up because naturally it's going to give you a competitive edge. We're not even going to get into the questions whether or not people are doping and using the testosterone of bulls. We're leaving that alone, right? We're leaving that alone. But some of the characteristics that we end up seeing and watching, we start having questions of, like Tyreek Hill. And he, for a point in time, he was all in the news. Like it was constant. So we're going to go through his test. His trial starts today with, I think Bianca Hill. We'll get into that, but excuse me, I'll get her name later. In this rundown, there's a lot to go in there. And sometimes you don't hear about a lot of stuff that happens to a lot of these athletes. You have a league that is well vested, or at least was well vested in keeping a lot of this quiet until later on you saw that the public really stopped caring. What I mean by this, you'd hear about some, professional athlete do something, some rapper do something that was detrimental, that was dangerous, but they weren't canceled. You're just like, it's boys will be boys type of mentality. So the league just doesn't have to police them as much. Outside of it being something extremely heinous, something that goes against, maybe makes the league look kind of tarnished, like you're supporting this, but not really. Right? So we'll go over some of the stuff that he was made the news for. In 2014, Oklahoma State domestic assault case. Hill was arrested in Stillwater, Oklahoma after being accused of assaulting his pregnant girlfriend, Crystal Espinal. Police reports alleged he punched and choked her and struck her in the stomach. Oklahoma State dismissed him from the football team shortly afterwards. Cool. 2015, Hill pleaded guilty to domestic assault and battery by strangulation. 3 years probation, anger management, a batterer intervention program, and domestic abuse evaluation requirements. So this follows him through the NFL, right? But again, they still look and said that talent is what we're looking for. 2019, child abuse investigation. Authorities in Kansas investigated Hill and Espinal after their 3-year-old son suffered a broken arm. A wildly publicized audio recording emerged in which Espinal said their son was afraid of Hill. And Hill allegedly replied, "You should be afraid of me too." That's quite the line. Prosecutors stated they believed the crime occurred, but said evidence was insufficient to determine who caused the injury. No criminal charges were filed. Child Services temporarily took custody of their child during the investigation. Okay, so her name was Sophie Hall. 2023 incident, to the 2024 civil lawsuit. This is the ongoing case right now. So June 2023, social media influencer Sophie Hall said she met Hill through his football camp and later visited his Florida home. We're going to get into details about that later on. But again, shout out to, like we used yesterday, I'm not your lawyer, but she did a breakdown of this, and then she's going to do a later breakdown of the entirety of the case as it develops. So for now, we'll kind of wait and see. Again, remember, we are tourists. This isn't the stuff we normally cover, but I think there are parallels in this that we can use to jumping off points to talk about important things. But in the meantime, at least we can be somewhat entertained a bit. So according to Hall's lawsuit, they participated in football drills. Check. She knocked Hill backward during a rep. She's tall, right? She's tall. Hill allegedly became angry and shoved her. She suffered a fractured leg requiring surgery and metal implants. Hill's attorney denied wrongdoing and argued Hall assumed the risk by participating in the drills. I don't know if she signed a waiver or anything like that. Her injury may have happened accidentally, including claims involving a dog during the play. So one of the things, and there's like 5-6 other things, but for the sake of this, we're going to be using as jumping off to talk about the actual details surrounding the trial. So you guys can get a break from just kind of looking at me. We'll turn it over to her soon. But of course, subscribe to the channel, double tap that screen to let the algorithm know, we're here. Also jump in the chat, let me know you're here, get a little detail. If you are, a fan of therapy or not, let me know. But again, we got a little bit more show to go. So, stay tuned and enjoy. This is the breakdown from I'm Not Your Lawyer, but
NFL player Tyreek Hill is being sued by this influencer. And before you start seeing all the clips from this trial, because I imagine there are going to be some viral moments, let me tell you everything you need to know about how this started as sliding into some DMs and ended with a broken leg and a lawsuit. Ciao. So this is model, actress, and social media influencer Sophie Hall. And back in May of 2023, she purchased a ticket for her 10-year-old son to go to Tyreek Hill's football camp. According to the lawsuit, prior to purchasing that ticket, Sophie never had any interactions with Tyreek. However, the day after she purchased that ticket, Tyreek slid into her DMs saying, quote, "Not." She replies, "Not what?" And then he says, "Not 6'1", which is the height she has listed in her bio of her Instagram. She then tells him she is 6'1" and that he will see that she is because, interestingly enough, she literally just paid for her son to go to his football camp. Tyreek then replies saying, quote, "We lit then. I'ma see you towering over everyone, I guess." And then says, quote, "I've been known to be a good stepdad." However, the day after she purchased that ticket, Tyreek slid into her DMs saying, quote, "Not." She replies,
So I just rerun that real quick. Is that a good line? I've been known to be a good stepfather. Is that working? Someone let me know.
"Not what?" And then he says, "Not 6'1", which is the height she has listed in her bio of her Instagram. She then tells him she is 6'1" and that he will see that she is because, interestingly enough, she literally just paid for her son to go to his football camp. Tyreek then replies saying, quote, "We lit then. I'ma see you towering over everyone, I guess." And then says, quote, "I've been known to be a good stepdad." The two of them keep messaging each other on Instagram, and when it came time for the camp, Sophie comes down a day early because Tyreek told her that he wanted to hang out. At this point, they exchange phone numbers, and about 10 days after the camp, Tyreek flies Sophie out to spend a few days with him at his house. Now, according to Sophie, she arrived on June 28th. She spent the morning with his mom and his sister while Tyreek was out for a few hours, and then when he came back, he did some drills in his backyard. According to Sophie, after Tyreek did the drills with his trainer, he then invited her to join him in doing some. See, this is already a bad idea, because why would you play football with someone who plays football? So Sophie says on the first play, Tyreek tells her he's going to play offense while she plays defense. His mom, his sister, his friend, and his trainer are all outside watching, and when he says hike, she apparently rushed him, causing him to be pushed backwards as she's pushing against him. This move apparently caused the audience watching, his mom, his sister, his trainer, and his friend, to laugh. And according to Sophie, this is when things changed. The lawsuit says Tyreek became angry and embarrassed that he lost his stability at the hands of a woman, and so he tells her, "Let's run another play." But this time...
Now, keep in mind, I still had his family. She came, he was in the DMs, right? He was hollering. He was like, "Yo, what's up? Come through a day earlier, and then come to the house." Now, for the men in the chat or the men in the replay gang watching this later, we know we can't do that, right? How many times do you see videos where women say, "I'm not coming to your house"? The first time we linking, the first time we're meeting up with, "I'm not coming to your house." We also don't have Tyreek Hill money. We also don't have Tyreek Hill's reputation. Right? That, like, there's battery, there's assault in there, but I'm gonna go to his house and we're gonna play football. And if this is how it went down, it's how it went down.
He's going to play defense while she plays offense. See, I don't even play like that. They run the second play, but while they're running it, a small dog runs out and interrupts them. So they run the play for a third time. And according to the lawsuit, in this third play, Sophie holds her own. And so Tyreek says, "Let's run it again." And it's during this fourth play that Tyreek allegedly charged Sophie so hard that she felt an immediate pain in her leg, and that caused her to collapse to the ground. Now, according to the lawsuit, despite Tyreek's knowledge of sports-related injuries, he downplayed Sophie's injury, telling her she just needed to rest and ice it up.
Now he told her to walk it off. Are you crazy?
Sophie stays at his house for a couple of days, and when she gets home about 3 days later, she goes to the doctor and learns that her right leg is broken. This is...
Now, for any of you that ever played any sport or have ever had something broken, even just a fracture, just a tear, you know it's broken, right? You know 100% it's broken. There's very little question about it. The pain is there. It's not something that you can, as you said, walk it off. No, I mean, you twist your knee the wrong way, you stub your toe, you know what happens. So you being there for multiple days while you're sort of recuperating and then it being broken, it's a hard thing. You would know immediately. I fractured my right ankle in 3 places playing football. I knew immediately, right? There was a snap. There was this internalized snap, snap, snap. It was in quick, staccato succession, and I went down. Right? I was able to. Right? It was right after a play, and I ended up like hobbling back off the field, and adrenaline is still there, right? Still excitement. But I noticed immediately I put any type of weight on it. It was excruciating. I immediately found a seat, right? Post haste. And when I originally went to the, ER the next day, yeah, she's like, "Yeah, it's broken." And he held up the x-ray. It's like 1, 2, 3, right there. Right. And this is just like, this is hairline fractures. You knew it immediately. And also, it swells. Like, it swells a lot, right? It swells, and every little jostle, every little thing, like, we taped it up thinking I'm about to go back on the field because I'm a guy. I got it, right? Right? I got it. It's not going to be a problem. It's not going to be an issue. It was a whole issue. I went back out there and it was like, no, you're not doing anything. So on the ride back, I've got this big old, nothing but laser tape tied to my cleat up around the ankle, and every little bump that bus went. And, you know, there seems to be this thing with buses and shocks. There's just like, yo, eliminate them. So every little jostle, pain. Now, I get it. Man, we don't have the same type of system. We don't have the same type of tolerance you guys have. Kudos to y'all. It should hurt. Right? It should hurt. If you're broken, you know. His knowledge of sports injuries, right? Yeah, he's a doctor, right? At a fraction of the left hand. You knew it immediately, right? In the minute my body had the gall, the nerve to tell me, and your face just goes like, oh. You know what happened, right? No question about it. You're fully cognizant of that, and it just sucks. And it continues to suck. It's one of those things that you just, I mean, we didn't train where Batman trained, right? So we're not with Tibetan monks where we could just block out the pain receptors. It's a normal human boy, right? Normal, hurt, sucked. That was it. So to be like, yo, you spent 3 days. And if we're being fair, what do you think happened to you in those 3 days that you were at his house? What do we think happened? Right? We can say it in the chat. We're all adults. What do you think actually happened while he was there? That's a lot of women, right? No, that's a lot of women. I'm saying it's also as she showed him, as she rushed him, right, during the play, she rushed him. You saw it's a lot of women. But what do you think happened during that time they were together in the house for 3 days? It was just cool. He was just like, you walking up, you good? I'm gonna go in this other room and I'm gonna read the Bible. I'm just gonna pray for you. You think that's what happened? Would it make a difference to the, like, I know you can definitely have sex with a broken leg, but would you have sex with a broken leg? 'Cause I'm almost certain that that's what happened while they were together for 3 days. I mean, he did say, you know, with the smoothest line I've ever heard, I've been known to be a good stepfather, in case you were wondering.
Actually, a video she posted on her Instagram account about 2 weeks after the incident.
There shall never be anyone like you. Therefore, know yourself. Be yourself. Authenticity is everything.
7 months after this incident, Sophie...
That's all we were doing, praying. That's all we were doing. We'll find our direction. That's it. That's that. A whole lot of it. Sweaty, deep praying.
Filed this lawsuit alleging that Tyreek intentionally and maliciously charged at her because he was embarrassed. And so she's suing him for assault and battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and negligence. And the negligence claim is because, according to Sophie, Tyreek had a duty to be more careful when he was engaging in sports-related activity. Now, the lawsuit doesn't say this, but I imagine this duty they claim he had is because he's an NFL player, and so he had even more of a reason to be careful. Now,
so I've got questions, and I don't understand it, and it could be just me, right? Simple Jack. What do you mean I have a duty, right? I'm good at a sport. I have a duty to what? Right? That I understand if you wanted to, turn it up on her, that's on you. As a grown man, thinking, right, if this is as you allege, he full on tackled you like they do in the NFL, then I think, does it matter that he's a player? Maybe he knows how to tackle better. But again, I think that's a little, I'm fine with you saying, yeah, no, he broke my ish, right? He broke my ish. And then moving on with that, but trying to say like, yo, you got a duty to make sure I didn't get hurt. Remember, you originally signed up for his training camp. You signed up your son for his training camp. This is not the training camp. Like, that's not, you came to the house. You came to the spot. Now, if you want to sue like his insurance or the home, like, yeah, man, this happened while I was here. That makes sense to me. But the insurance is going to be, certainly capped and said, there, this is what you get paid for it, if your timeline of events is believed. But the 3 days that you still spent there, that's curious, right? I'm just, again, I'm a simple man with a simple curiosity. 3 days with a broken limb. It's hard for me to understand that.
Now, in defense of these claims, Tyreek is saying Sophie is the one that was negligent for participating in a dangerous football drill. And he also seemed to claim in one of his depositions that Sophie didn't get the injury from him, but instead got it when she stepped on the dog during one of the drills. So I'm not sure what the defense is actually going to be, but I'm sure we'll find out in opening statements, which are scheduled to start today.
So I think that's a equally suspect sort of defense, saying, nah, you stepped on a dog, that's when you got it, but you still ran a play after that. I know you're supposed to, this defense, you're throwing a lot out there, but again, a broken limb, right? That's a better question. Did the dog make it, or is the dog part of this lawsuit? Is the dog countersuing her, saying you stepped on me during the drill? And like we understand, like when you get hurt, it's not on a progressive scale. Like you hurt it, and said, yeah, you can make things worse, but you don't suddenly break your limb throughout your 3-day stay. It's either broken right there when it happened with the dog, and the entire play is over. No one's doing anything else. We're getting getting you to the hospital so you can get X-rays, so you can get this looked at. You don't now enjoy yourself for 3 days, right? You have a guest bedroom where you sleep, where you get ready. You wake up and you pray. You go get something to eat. You guys go back to the room to pray. You go get some lunch. You go back to the room to pray, right? You do all these things. Yet that leg was broken the entire time. Listen, we understand when you're that tall, things tend to break. Things tend to go left a lot. So was this a pre-existing thing that sort of just played out? She was in shock, but it was a shock, so she played on in shock for 3 days, right? We know of the natural shock that happens, the 72-hour shock. The most dangerous and sexy shocks of them all. They just linger there. So you stay there in shock, amazed, awed, right? Maybe sometimes often described as orgasmic, but let's continue.
Now, before I go, there are a few other interesting tidbits from the filings. So Sophie's attorney recently filed some motions asking the judge to prevent Tyreek's team from bringing up that she has an OnlyFans account, that she may or may not have had relationships with other NFL players, and her team is asking for the judge to prevent Tyreek's team from telling the jurors that she and Tyreek were intimate without protection the night of the injury and the next day. So
does that change the thing? Does that change your calculus at all? Does that change it? Yeah, I don't want them to know I've got OnlyFans. I've slept with other NFL players. We may have had sex that day of the day of the injury where this thing was broken. Or let's say, would you have accepted a better conversation being, yo, the sex was so rough, he broke my leg? I don't think you can countersuit for that. You just say, yeah, I did that. Right? Just say, yeah, I did that. Right? Oh no, he broke my hip. Right? Like in the other guys. Like, yo, I'm gonna break that hip. I think that'd be a better sell. Yo, that's what happened. Rather than saying this timeline is to be believed. It sounds kind of outrageous to the layperson.
Sophie's team is arguing that none of this information is relevant to the case and could actually cause the jury to unfairly judge her. Meanwhile, Tyreek's team is saying all of this information is relevant, and the sex part is especially relevant because why would she be intimate with someone who she believes purposefully just hurt her? And the decision to not use protection, according to them, shows that there was some level of trust. And then on Tyreek's side, because Sophie isn't the only one trying to have stuff excluded from this trial, Tyreek's team has asked the judge to prevent any mention of his prior violence allegations, or as Sophie puts it, that he has a history of losing his temper and becoming physically violent with his romantic partners. Well, now, I don't know. That may seem relevant. I told y'all this gonna be a mess. Okay, so that's my recap for everything you need to know about this trial starting today. I'll probably be back at the end of the trial to give a full recap on what happened. Child, what's wrong with these professional athletes? Y'all need to sit down somewhere.
I think both sides are a little ridiculous. I think Tyreek Hill he definitely needs better representation, because what do you think they're not going to know? Right? Tyreek Hill, if I'm going in there, I'm being part of the jury, I'm being selected, we're going to know that. that you got this history of it, or better yet, I simply assume you do because that's kind of what's being associated with NFL players. I think her points are, yeah, that's absolutely be relevant, absolutely be mentioned. Yes, that you guys had sex that night. Your whereabouts afterwards should be known. What happened right after you got hit? You got hurt. Did you immediately leave, or no? You stayed. We had sex that night, then we had sex the next day, and you still stayed, and then you left. I think that's very relevant. I think that tells a lot of the tale. Does it mean that the way you were hurt probably it didn't happen? Does it mean that if you were hurt, he's still not, liable for it? It just now doesn't seem like you're actually hurt from that incident. Now, personally, yeah, I'd have threw myself off like, a 2-story window and, landed on my leg the wrong way and say, this happened because of that dog. This happened during that incident. And when I go to the doctor and they have the x-ray is not, it's not like DNA where we can time it, where we can go back, or it's body temp. We say, yeah, the body cooled at this rate. That means this person was killed at this temp. If the ambient temperature was held this, it's not that. So all I need to see is that you have an injury on your leg, which you can get at any said time. I don't know how, it's not like I can cut it open and look at it at the cut up your bone and look at it, the rings on a tree and say, yo, check this out. You see what happens there? That's what it is, right? Did she use that knowledge to approach him with a purpose? If you book your son into this training camp, and then he just so happens to slide in your DMs, I'd look at that and say, oh, this is too easy. And then you drop in, again, the coldest lines you've ever heard in your life, right? He's saying, I've been known to be a good step. I'm saying, I'm you know what it is. Now I'm saying, we're talking, say, yo, why don't you just come through? Let's have a good time. And we can run some plays. We all knew what time it was. We all know what's happening. I don't think we're all playing it. We're all adults, or at least play acting at adults. You knew exactly what was happening, what was going on there. So I use this for an example of many times when you are in these positions, and we covered this Stefan Diggs yesterday. When you, for men, one of the greatest destroyers or distractors on our path is going to be our lust for women, where this is going to be one of the things that, one makes you a target. You have this resources, and we're going to play both sides. We're going to play devil advocate, where you're a man with resources, and it's easy for me in this day and age to extract those resources, especially when we no longer you kind of move or understand shame. We don't use that. That's not a great mover to people. So if I go and I sue you, I'm an OnlyFans model, quote unquote, I don't care what you think about me. I stopped caring what you think about me. The world stopped caring what you really thought about most people anyway. So if this is an easy money grab, like the chef girlfriend was trying with yesterday for $5.5 million, or that wasn't the actual case. It was the assault and strangulation, but your lawyer made a play for $5.5 million. And here, this is not a criminal case. It's a civil. So we know the preponderance of evidence is smaller. I don't, if I'm a juror, I'm looking at this and saying, Tyreek Hill, you probably need a better defense team, because some of the stuff that you're trying to rebuttal is nonsensical. It just kind of distracts from the issues. But all that to say, you need to be in better control of how you move. But is this a scenario where we're talking to someone that when they were young, they were coddled for their talent, where we didn't look and say, maybe we need to help you develop more emotionally, more mentally. Help you understand how to move more stoically. We just say, you've got this amazing talent to run and jump. You're faster than these other people. You can take hits more than we put effort into raising that. And now are we looking at something where we say, well, we're kind of responsible for why you keep navigating these things poorly? We rarely look and say, hey, what type of upbringing did you have when we were ignoring a lot of the trauma you may have grew up in? And he's just one of the examples of men in that space. And while it's all kind of like cool, right? Like, oh, okay. Until we start thinking about it outside of just an NFL athlete or one of the peaks of the athletes there. when we look at it in just the normal, regular, degular life, in the last month or so, the amount of women that were killed in a high profile sort of way, the amount of black women that were killed in a high profile sort of way becomes staggering. So is this a case where we've let the mental health of men we took our foot off the gas in terms of caring for it, in terms of looking for these things, trying to see what ways we can improve, when we put men down to simply what you can produce, be that on the court, off the court, in an office space, and whatever, even a blue collar job, whatever. And we're specifically keeping black. We're not saying that it only happens black, because in Houston you had that murder suicide by I think very white family, but we're talking in terms of just men. When we don't look into these things, or we don't create the proper fundamentals of society of how you deal with that, we end up in a position where we're just like, it's and saying that it's not us, right? It's not me. I get that, right? I get that. But that's not really a comfort of people. A bunch are saying it's not us, but I can't, like we said yesterday on the live stream, there's very little I can do to be responsible for someone across the United States, someone a couple states over. And there's people that I've known tangentially that have done stuff like this, or have committed suicide, or have gone off the reservation in those sort of ways. But one of the I think the only real solutions that we have to look at some of these things is, one, we need to redefine what these things mean for us as men. We can't let this conversation be one that is being told to us, rather than it's one that we are defining and holding on our own. And you have different people that we look to, or that because they have a platform, they talk about these things, and then we have to sort of react and see, is this the litmus test for how things are? So whenever we talk about mental health in that sense, right, we have a clip from Dana White, who recently, there's been some talk about what he said concerning mental health and the growing trend of just the conversation in itself. Let's take a look at this.
I hate this whole men's mental health bullshit that they talk about. Unfortunately, when you're a man, you are the provider. You are the one that takes care of your family. You are the example for your kids when they grow up, and your sons, and your daughters. And you, unfortunately, you can't be that guy I see these guys posting on social media, I had a bad day and I'm so sad, and all this other crazy shit.
So unattractive.
It's unattractive to other males, let alone women. I can't even imagine. I'm really against all that shit.
So one of the, it depends on different camps. You can look at this and say, yo, man, I kind of agree. But it's a fatalistic sort of view. Like, you have to put up with this. You have to be strong enough to deal with these things. But let's take it a different way. Let's look at the world in terms of vices, right? Especially United States. Let's look at the war on drugs, where we constantly went back and forth fighting, or supposedly fighting cartels, but we know we had hands in moving guns and money for guns and all that. But it's a war on vice. It's a war on need. It's a war on, I need to somehow make this thing. I need the money. I need this, whatever. When you have a society like we have today that creates such a need for the vice, where so many people need an avenue to escape, is it natural that they fall to drugs? It doesn't matter how much you criminalize it. Doesn't matter how much you tax it. When the need exists, people are going to find it. People are going to cook it up in their backyard. Right? You're going to be cooking like on Breaking Bad, just simply in an effort to get the relief from the world as you see fit, as you need. When you look at the unhoused, the homeless, there's a large group of them that simply just said, I don't want to deal with the rigors of getting a job and living that life according to those strictures. I want to be here on the streets. To divorce yourself from that sort of world and reality and just say, I'd rather do this. For us, we're looking at that and say, I can't even give up any of my comforts, my treatments like that. I would never do that. I would never engage in a lifestyle like that. But in reality, there's a large group that says, yeah, I'd rather do that. Not everyone is simply there because they couldn't hack it because they couldn't get a job, or they just said, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Right. Then, of course, drugs, that's an easy sort of path there. But a lot of people just look at society and say, I kind of reject this. Right now on TikTok, it's, the age of discovery, where people are saying we're trying to be truthful about what they're going through. Just in terms of financially, saying, if it was not for my mom, I could not survive. I don't make enough to apply for an apartment, get an apartment of my own. And if she wasn't here to supplement this, couldn't. I don't make enough. These places want 3 times your salary. I don't have enough to sign up for just a down payment. I don't make enough to cover that. So this guy, he was 25 years old, and he was really breaking down, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know there's a lot of people in there truly just sort of struggling with that. So when you see it in men, and you see them being open, you see them being vulnerable, when we look at men and we have that idea that you still have to produce, you have that Dana White point of view, I don't care. You got to produce. Okay. Well, let's play this out. What happens when you can't? We like to look at nuance. We like to look at data. We like to have a very real understanding that some of us are not going to be able to be hyper competitive, the movers and shakers. You're never going to see $1 million in your account. You're going to struggle like this until the end. It sounds fatalistic, but is it closer to reality? Because everything always going to end up in the bell curve. You're going to have the people that are standard deviations away from the mean, before the mean, and most of us are going to find ourselves in the center. If we economically keep having a growing center, that's going to be more and more our life regulated to less than mediocrity. And this is not just to be defeatist, it's just to look at it as a math, like as a math problem. If you're going to have rich, what determines the standard of rich? The standards of the average. So if we have society constantly telling people that you have to produce in some sort of fashion, some sort of sense, eventually you're going to realize you have people that cannot keep up to that standard. Again, Dana White, fatalistic sort of view, but that's what we're dealing with. So in relation to how we end up looking at this, how women have looked at this, if you're wanting the men that have made it, that have done something for themselves, and again, we don't shame people for what they want. We just say, this is what it is. If you want those people that made it, those top 10, those top 5, the rest are going to have a harder time. Now, I understand we're having 2 separate conversations. By one, what people say are online, and 2, what people are actually doing in the real world. Most people are understanding this is not a thing you can defeat. This game is not winnable solo. But you're quarter in, both of you press start at the same time, and you're going to play this game together. It's Contra, right? I'm the red guy, you're the blue guy. Let's do it. We have to stand a better chance of getting, even when we cheat and have 99 lives, we stand a better chance of doing this thing together than separately. So for those that understand that hey, even if we couple together, we can start trying to eat away at this challenge. Great. We love it. We want to see that. But we never want to sit there and ignore what's happening online, because so many people, especially those people that grew up in the age of the internet. My niece is growing up in the age of the internet and age of AI. She will never know a world without AI. She will never know, hey, before we used to do this. She'll look up in the museum and she'll see stuff like that. And she'll like, what is this? That's a PlayStation, the first one. I'm like, ew. Right? That could be a very real reality for her. It's a completely different world. So when you grow up in those sort of senses, then you have to understand that these lives, these people are going to be mediocre, average. You have a better chance of getting with someone that's average, and you guys are average, and making something that is above average, moving towards in that direction. Is it impossible for you to grow, to get rich, to get to that spot? If that's your goal, no, it's not. You just understand that there's a lot of things that have to be sacrificed. Or more importantly, if you're getting with someone that already has those things, there's very little incentive for him to say, yeah, let me do things your way. Why would I care? Without that person, male or female, this odds for you going from there to over here is very small, very slim. So for the men that are sitting there and struggling under that weight of somehow trying to get there to that 100K salary and then beyond, we have to do a better, job of understanding. Yeah, your best bet is to get with someone that understands the very truth of this. You can't be online trying to grab you someone that's thinking completely antithetical to you. And some of those people that are antithetical to your thought are the Dana Whites, are the people saying, dog, I don't care. Mental health, I don't care. Yeah, it's because you're not suffering under it. The load isn't there for you. Even when you are productive, even when you do have the money, that doesn't mean you are exempt from any type of issues with mental health. We still live under the same sun. And some of these things that affect you, they're biological. They're biological. It's not that, someone passed or someone, you missed someone. Some of these things happen. They're on a neurochemical level, and you just have to sort of grind and hold on. And hopefully you have people around you can recognize that and help you get treatment. But we get callous when it comes to men. And so, and part of that is also the men talking about these issues. It's not that, okay, you've got a mental health issue and it's simply just for the larger world to solve it, or simply just for women to come and solve it. No, men, we have to do a better job of saying, okay, yeah, I need help, and I need the proper type of help. It may not be sitting on the couch and talking about it. So how you feeling? I'm followed that. I feel like shit. Well, what do you want to talk about? No, I don't want to talk about it. We want to tell me stories about what it was like being him. Yes. Cool. Now we're ruminating on the thing. For men, that's not really helpful. Your problems are always larger because you constantly talk about that. For men, that's very big with us. I ruminate on it. I talk about it again and again and again and again. It just gets larger to me. And I get stuck in inaction. Have you ever experienced a time when there's something you should be doing? There's a bill back there that you need to pay and you simply don't do anything about it. Interest just keeps accruing. Or there's a task that you need to take care of. You need to start and you need to nail this down. Think about like taxes. For those of you that do your taxes on your own, you're sitting there, you're waiting. You're just, boom, you're waiting. That's what's going on. You're waiting. You're thinking in your head, this is going to be a monumental issue. This is monumental. Whenever it's time for me to do my taxes, there's so much to do. There's so much information I've got to gather. This property. It just becomes daunting. Until you sit down and do it. And then you're like, oh, okay. I've been doing this for years. Okay, it's a little streamlined. I know where that is. I know what this is. I know what this is. And it's just sitting down and doing it. And all the while you're sitting there kind of whistling. Why didn't I start this? Why didn't I just do this? If it wasn't for the last minute, it wouldn't get done. We need to start thinking about things. Okay, let me sometimes be preemptive. I'm not feeling good. Let me reach out. As a man, I'm not feeling good. I'm not mentally feeling stable. Let me reach out. What I love about my friend group right now, when we talk, right? And Blair, if you're still in the chat, Blair can attest to that. When we talked yesterday, he's like, how you feeling? Randomly, call, how you feeling? And I'll give him a real answer. One of the truest things about therapy, whether or not you go to it, whether or not the type you agree to it, you go to it, is that garbage in, garbage out. You give shitty answers. You're not really being real, and you're just cheating yourself. So the results or whatever advice or guidance you get doesn't really resonate with you as well. It's because you weren't really open to it. And I know this is a difficult thing for men because we struggle because we've been told you have to produce. We don't talk about you have to produce feelings. We don't really hold for that. We don't really propagate that. We don't really teach that. So what happens? You become, I hesitate to say deficient in it, because the next part is critically important. The issue becomes one of the standard that you compare it to. When we say that, as a man, that you don't communicate or you don't show enough of your emotion, you don't emote properly, that comes from the standard usually of how therapy was formed for women. The way they do it is not necessarily the same way you do it. That doesn't make your way wrong. But when you're grading on that standard, it's gonna be wrong. If you go and for the nerds out there, right? You're in geometry class, but you're taking a test for calculus. You're good at geometry. You're bad at calculus. You're supposed to be graded on the geometry test. We're grading you on this test. Yeah, you're all wrong. And we'll sit there and look at you and say, you're wrong. You don't get it. Or better yet, you take the test, we keep it with the math, we keep it with the physics, right? Love physics. You keep it with that and they're like, show your work. Right? And you're like, yo, I got it like this. You're like, yeah, but that's a different formula. You should have done it like this. You should have used this one that accounts for this. You got the right answer. You got the right answer, and the way you did it was not wrong. You accounted for the same forces. You accounted for the same gravitational pull. You did it differently. But they look at you and say, no, it's wrong. Because the standard is something else. So when men end up saying, yo, I'm not going to therapy, it's because they very much think the standard is a feminine one. I'm not going to get the same thing I would get from that. Then they joke and criticize, you just going to go to the gym? Yeah, I'm going to the gym. I'm going to talk to my boy, right? Or I'm going to go to, sometimes I'm going to shop around for a proper therapist, one where I can get exactly what I need. A lot of times because we don't know enough about therapy, what we'll do, those of you that have gone, that are intending to going, we'll simply think, whatever, you take my insurance, let's go. Rather than thinking, what is this person specialized in? You almost have to try it on like a new suit and see, well, does this fit well? Does this need to be properly tailored? You have to look at it like that. And like we said yesterday, it's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be just like, yo, I showed up, I left, I felt good. Not supposed to be easy, but you're also not supposed to be in there for years at a time. You're supposed to get equipped to know how to deal with your current problems, the currents that may crop up in your life, but your therapist is not your journal. Tell me about your week. And you just sort of emote and get that out. You see, you can understand why that doesn't really work for men. We want to know, we want to be defined by action. We want that to be the guiding light. Came in here, boom. But to my best ability, I still feel this way. Let me help you unpack that. And then we can start thinking about these different things, about what it might relate, and then give you an action plan. What are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to get better? What's the key? What's the secret? What's the move? That's the way we move as men. So we got to find a better medium rather than saying that, yo, you don't care about men's mental health. We need to care about it, especially when you look at this, the rates of male deletion. That's important. That's critical. Just pretending like it doesn't exist or it's not important because you want to judge a man by how much he produces. What's the cutoff? Because eventually, some of us are not going to be the Dana White. Some of us are not going to have enough to, on our own, when we're propagating this narrative that men have to do it on their own. You realize a lot of us can't. And you realize the truth, most of us aren't. Most of us are doing it with a partner who understands, especially if you care about your man, why would it put him under that undue stress? Why would we not be moving collaboratively? Is that not how we get the best outcomes? We're doing this thing together. More importantly, I can feel like I actually contributed and I had a hand in this thing, rather than I'm just a tourist, rather than I'm just existing in this space with you. No, we built this thing together. Right? You could be like Franklin say, we built this brick by brick. Like it's we, not I. I think that's an important distinction, and we need to hopefully have more real conversations rather than just kind of boasting like, yo, I did it. Maybe, but what did it cost you? Like as a man, what did it cost you? What did they ask of you to make all this happen? What did you end up sacrificing? The time away from family, those precious moments, those memories. That's what they wanted. That's what they cost. That's what it costs. And that's what we end up willing to give. So I'm trying to redefine what it means to me and make sure stealing some of the plays from women, how they put their happiness way higher on the charts than we do. We have this idea that is duty and sacrifice above all else. If you want to be in the military, you should have joined the military. You're allowed to be happy as a man. I don't think that's a ridiculous hot take. You should be given that sort of grace to say, no, what I want matters. What I'm trying to build matters. My happiness is important. That's how I see it, and that's how I'm going to move forward in trying to have those conversations. Again, those of you that constantly meet me out here helping me build this channel by jumping in the chat, these things are incredibly important. So as always, thank you guys for that. We might try to do another one tomorrow if I feel so moved, but besides that, you know, guys, double tap, subscribe to the channel, and we've got more content dropping as usual. 2 a days that, you know, they beat me the hell up, but we're going to continue. We got another month until we make that full year describing that discipline. I think that's critical. Men should set that sort of example. So I've got more content to record and then edit, but I'll see you guys next time.